If you're a fan of anime or manga, I'm sure you've had this conversation in the past with a friend before. Oh hey, I love this show, but I feel like it's underappreciated, underloved, or underrated. Most of the time when you look up series that are underrated, they're definitely not as popular as more mainstream stuff, but overall they're still very well known. I mean, come on, look at this. What is this? While that is technically underrated, I want to talk about a series that you simply will not find on any of those lists. One that's not so recent and goes almost untalked about in anime circles. Gungrave. So what the heck is Gungrave? Many would be surprised to find out that the series began as a video game franchise. On July 18th, 2002, Gungrave would release for the PlayStation 2. The game was an interesting cel-shaded third-person shooter which would follow the story of the character beyond the grave. The character designs were created by none other than Yasuhiro Naito, an artist known for his other works such as Kekkai Sensen and Trigun. From 2003 to 2004, the anime would release, which Naito spearheaded, developing the characters, motives, relationships, and more. At the time, a video game tie-in was sort of unheard of. Most times it would be the other way around, where a cathartic anime would get an awesome video game to make you really feel like Guts, or Kenshiro, or whatever anime character you really like. The most recent portrayal of this tie is none other than the extremely popular Cyberpunk Edgerunners, which breathed new life into the game series. Now that I think about it, I mention this because Gungrave has a similar situation going on as we speak. More on that later, though. The anime begins with a time skip ahead into the anime series, which aligned more with the game. For newcomers, I highly insist ignoring episode 1. It completely ruins the rest of the show and what to expect, especially since the pace is completely different. Episode 1 is all pew pew, ah! And then the real first episodes are more... It's just not the same pace. And that's not to say that they're not all full of tension, heart, and anxiety, but the second half is just completely different compared to the first. In the beginning of this series, we see the protagonist Brandon Heat and his best friend Harry McDowell and their gang and how happy they are even though they are broke. They don't need money or power, they have family. Over the course of the first few episodes, crazy events ensue and Harry and Brandon are given a chance to move up in the ranks of a big crime syndicate. Harry wants to pursue these ideals. He always dreamed of being number one. Brandon only cares about his friends, the people he loves. He follows Harry because their friendship is something that means everything to him, when he has nothing. Throughout the series, we see the way their dynamic changes. We see Brandon go from being someone who struggles with showing his emotions, to completely suppressing his own desires to see those around him happy until those parts of him explode. We see Harry grow and become more and more twisted in his desires, wanting to truly be the strongest version of himself that he can be. Along the way, we meet other members of the group who create a new sense of family for Brandon. Two standouts being Bear Walken, a high-member killer in the organization and mentor to Brandon, and Bunji Kugashira, an assassin for hire who grows a friendly rivalry with Brandon, who he grows to call his Aniki. We also see the low-level grunts who Brandon works with, Gary and Widge, who he remains loyal to even to the complete end. This loyalty is part of what makes Brandon so endearing, but it's also his biggest flaw. You know how Batman's issue is that he's all, "No, I won't kill the Joker! I am not a killer!" But then that causes even more issues. It's the same with Brandon's loyalty. It's his hubris and the bane of his existence. This show really likes taking its time developing the characters and cast. At moments it sometimes feels like it might be dragging a little, but it all proves to be worth it as it's all reincorporated and really makes you feel for each character. The time you spend with the characters makes you understand them and feel for them in their perilous adventure. The second half of the show pays off this build-up that we have seen waiting for as shit hits the fan. The time skip shows the ways the characters have changed for better or for worse, and the long build-up feels worthwhile. From this point onwards, I will be divulging spoilers. Skip to this time code here to hear my final thoughts on the series without divulging too much of what happens. The series begins with Harry and Brandon losing their closest friends to gang violence. They are murdered in cold blood in a feud that simply didn't involve them. Harry's desires grow more and more ambitious because of this loss. We see him vow to make those who killed his friends pay, but also to rise the ranks of Millennion, the criminal organization that gave him and Brandon the opportunity for growth. He becomes hell-bent on this, even showing his clothing change to reflect this. At the beginning, he wears a white suit with a red shirt. White symbolizing his pure outside, while the red can represent his fiery nature, his pride, and his ambition. As the story progresses, he changes to a blue shirt, reflecting that he has grown to being a calm and cool person who's confident in his identity. By the midway point, where he begins to betray those he was closest to, he wears a black shirt, showing his inner evil and motives. His exterior is of peace, prosperity, but inside he is nothing more than a corrupted man, as bad as those he had once scorned for killing his friends. At the end of the series, we see how the anxiety of watching his own back has aged Harry so terribly, making him old, haggard. His white suit remains, but now his shirt is a muted red color, showing the way his ambition has dulled so much. Brandon, on the opposite end of the spectrum, has always worn darker, more muted colors. He's introverted, but not completely shy. But he always has been quiet. This is sometimes to his own detriment. He has trouble communicating what he wants, and at times it seems that he's unsure of it. All he wanted at the start was the days of his family he began with. He wants to be with Maria, but he also knows that his life of crime would put her in jeopardy. That is until he meets Big Daddy, the head of Millennium. Goofy names aside, BD is a man of loyalty, honesty, and compassion, albeit being a murdering mob boss himself. He never comes off as a malicious or evil person, but instead as someone who believes in and mentors Brandon and Harry. Brandon sees this and the way in which Big Daddy has taken care of Maria and decides that maybe it would be best if he wasn't in her life. He fears that he would see her die. He gives away his chance at love to continue making Harry, the brother he loves so dearly, happy. He clings to what he considers his last link to his dead friends, Harry, and those childhood memories between him and his best friend. This would continue to culminate as the two friends continue to climb the ranks together. Harry and Brandon continue to kill off other gangs and their enemies, and they recruit Bungie as extra muscle for their efforts. We see Bear say goodbye to one of his best friends as he has to accept the bitter reality of the Mafia. We see Bungie and Brandon going from being rivals to close friends, and we see the way the love between Bear's daughter Sherry and Harry has begun to blossom. You would think that only bright days are to come from this point onwards, but sadly, for the cast, no one can know happiness too long. This marks the big shift in the series. The betrayal that created the game's storyline, the part that truly composes Gungrave's identity. Harry tells Brandon to join him in killing BD, the man who figuratively and literally removed them from their slum, who raised them into the men that they were that very day. Brandon, for the first time, makes a conscious decision of loyalty. He will not betray BD, he pulls the gun on Harry. Everything leads up to this. All those memories, all those moments in time, their friendship. He couldn't do it. Harry was his family, all he had. But Harry? Brando! Eventually, he is brought back from the dead. On the side, it looks like Harry did more than just mafia business. He was playing God. He tasked scientists to continue creating assassins and monsters that were capable of leveling cities. The good doctor who worked with Harry, however, felt in his heart bringing back Brandon was the only right thing he could do to atone for his sins. When Brandon returns to his living state, he meets both Dr. T, who brought him back, and Mika, the daughter of Maria. He quickly forms a fatherly bond with her, as her link to Maria makes him certain that she must be protected. Now he must face all those he once called his friends, as he is labeled a traitor to Harry and Millennium. From this point on is where the game's plot somewhat intertwines with the animes. Both focus on Brandon's desire to get to Harry and end the chaos that surrounds his life now. The bosses all translate to the show and get completely enhanced. All those episodes that lingered with the characters pays off as we see them come to terms with the conflict at hand. The parts I love so much about Gungrave are the slow moments that make you reflect on the way you feel about yourself and your own interpersonal relationships with those around you. I think about my own life in relation to both Brandon and Harry. I'm not like Brandon in the sense that I would continue giving myself away to see others happy. I'm more like Harry in the sense of his ambitions. However, I would never go as far as he did, and certainly not to level the betrayals he pulls. I think that's beautiful because you really do consider where you land in relation to their decisions. Most people might hate the fact that till the end, Brendan has his loyalty. But this loyalty has earned him friends, it's earned him his connection to Mika, and it absolutely is what destroys Harry in the end. Harry cannot live with the damage he has done to others. He has to actually accept that he is a terrible person. A lot of the best shows have characters where you just cannot agree with all their actions. Walter White and Tony Soprano do terrible things that destroy the people around them. But Brendan is the opposite and lets those he loves destroy him. Harry on the opposite end is more akin to Tony or Walter, where his desires and his ego destroys those he is closest to. The one person he grows to love is his wife, Sherry, the daughter of Bear. She is shot and killed in his very arms. This creates an interesting parallel, as you may remember that Brendan avoided a relationship with Maria because he knew she would not be safe around him. Harry, however, believed himself above bending to the world. He pursued this relationship, and her death was one of the most destructive moments for him. In the final moments of the show, we see both Harry and Brendan at their absolute lowest. Brendan admits that he can't kill Harry, and that destroys him. Harry thrived on the hatred of others. He lived through spite, and yet the man he called his best friend chose not to have hatred towards him even after everything had been said and done. It's a beautiful ending that speaks to the identities we have and the choices we make. Desires and dreams can be powerful and create bonds, friendships, and move mountains, but it can also obliterate those very things as well. So, what's next for Gungrave? Well, going back to the topic of Edgerunners. Edgerunners was an anime which breathed new life into the game Cyberpunk, but Gungrave is in the opposite situation. Gungrave has a game coming out this year, 2022. Look at this thing. It looks like Lupin III's movie CGI. It's gorgeous. While the games do have a slightly different story than the anime, it looks like they are reincorporating aspects from the anime and retconning the original game's partial story beats. Because of this game's arrival, I feel like it's necessary to talk about how awesome the anime that transcended the original game is. I wouldn't have checked out this show if my friend Chris didn't urge me to check it out, so I have to give him a huge thank you for this. This show quickly became a part of me. I love it very dearly, and it absolutely destroys me at points. Consider giving it a go. It's only 26 episodes. Come on, watch it. You know you wanna. Thank you so much for watching this video. Originally, I partially created this as a means of convincing friends to check the series out, but I want to start working forward in YouTube and make more videos talking about other things I love. I'm actually more of a manga fan than anime one, but this show is just so good that I just wanted to talk about it. If you like this video, you could drop a like and sub and share it with your friends if you think it's cool like that. Stay tuned for more videos, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!